Hey all, Daniel here. We have a great new way for you to reach out to us here at We Watch TV. If you take a look down in the show notes of the podcast, you'll notice a link that says text us a question or comment. The link will open the messaging app on your phone, and from there you can send a text message to us, your favorite variety TV podcast hosts. So if we say something you like or don't like about your favorite show, click that link and educate us on your opinion. We love hearing them, even if they're wrong, and we will make sure to shout you out on our next episode or answer your burning questions. So make sure and check that out down in the show notes. And now, enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, welcome to We Watch TV, the podcast about the TV that we watch. I am Daniel, she is Hope. This is episode 68, and we've got a couple announcements. It seems like here in the last month or so, everybody's finally been given their show's dates.
Well, I think a lot of people have been having their quarterly meetings.
Sure,
like
yeah.
I know Disney had theirs a little bit earlier, so I think that's where some of these announcements must be coming out. Because I feel like most of the announcements that we have on here, save for one, are all from Amazon, correct?
Actually, yes, they are. So yeah, something must have been going on with Amazon. Do you want to kick us off on the first big announcement? This isn't a date necessarily, but it's exciting.
I will. So while we know that The Boys Season 4 is coming in June, we weren't sure if they were going to get a Season 5 or not. And The Boys Season 5 has actually been confirmed with Amazon Prime. I guess I have to see what happens in Season 4 for me to make a judgment. Am I excited? Cautiously. Because I do feel like The Boys is one of those shows that has a timeline on it. So you can only go with the shtick for so long.
I've actually, honestly, if they had announced Season 5 and Season 5 was going to be it, I would have been excited. But I'm worried that they didn't say that, which means they're leaving the door open for it to continue going. And you're right. Like, some of the storylines they've been working on have what I feel like is a pretty, like a deadline ending that need to start coming. We need to start seeing the tentacles of those deadlines creeping into the storylines. Yeah. I mean, I think with how we left Billy at the end of the season, that's one right there.
He was taking that stuff to give him the soup-like powers, but it was almost like killing him. Yeah. So how are they going to write themselves out of that?
And honestly, like I don't want the show without Billy.
I don't want the show without Billy, and I don't want to see Homelander get some type of redemption either.
No, absolutely not.
If his son is kind of leaning that way, that's okay to give that one redemption. The one character I would like to get redemption, his name is escaping me, the fast guy that kind of kicked off the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Killed Huey's original girlfriend because he ran right through her.
I would like to see that. I'm just not sure that's this show.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like they've been on the cusp of kind of dangling that because that guy's just so morally conflicted. But I'm not sure this is the show either. But we do know Jeffrey Dean Morgan is going to be in Season 4.
Yep, I'm excited.
We have finally seen a longer trailer. So I guess I'll reserve my judgment if I'm excited for Season 5 or not.
We're going to round back up. Season 4 is dropping in June. We've got The Bear Season 3 dropping in June. And we're going to have an episode probably in July or August where we basically rehash the best thing going.
Yeah.
And because now we know The Boys can be in the running because they've got another season.
Absolutely.
The Bear can be in the running because it's got another season. And we know that Severance has another season. So we've got 3, I think, pretty strong contenders that we're going to kind of have to have a conversation about.
I think we will have to revisit, like you said, this summer.
And maybe I might throw Star Trek Strange New Worlds in there. Who knows? You never know. It was my number 2 when we had the conversation the first time. So we'll have to see. Yours was Only Murders you had up there. I don't know. I don't know that would you put Only Murders up in that Boys, The Bear, Severance conversation?
Well, I know that we are getting Only Murders coming back in August. I feel like it's just such a different vibe.
It is.
Of show. If you go back and listen to like our supercut, this previous season started off slower for me because the trio wasn't together. But anytime that trio is together, it's gold.
The last couple episodes of the season were really good.
Or just perfection.
All right. Well, speaking of Amazon Prime shows, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which we watched earlier this year, has been confirmed for a season 2 with a gigantic asterisk. And that is There's no confirmation one way or the other that the same actors that played Mr. and Mrs. Smith are going to return in their roles. And there's a conversation seeming to be taking place about whether they're going to take the show as essentially an anthology kind, where every season is essentially a new Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Was this fan speculation, or is this something you
No,
read?
this was Forbes.
So Glover, though...
I didn't get this one off TikTok. I actually read an article.
Donald Glover, who was one of the leads, wasn't he a producer?
He's a producer as well, yes.
But he could still do that.
Well, he is. He's still producer on the show. He just hasn't confirmed he's coming back.
I'd still watch it if they go that way, as long as like the guy that sneezes like 3 times shows up and they continually show them. But I feel like that would almost be a lazy way out, because I want to see the conclusion of what happened. You can't leave me. I mean, obviously, I guess I would assume they're dead. Like, spoiler alert, we are a spoiler podcast. What ended at the end of season 1, if those 2 characters don't show up, I would assume it would be like what happened in that opener episode where the previous Mr. and Mrs. Smith were offed. But I would still watch it, but I personally, just like with Fallout, I want them to continue that storyline. I would like to see where those 2 characters go and how they get out of that jam, because they really kind of endeared themselves to me. I would prefer that. What about you?
That was my original thought when I read the article, and the more I've thought about it, the more I think I could get on board with an anthology type of aspect, where every season of this show is a new Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and instead of telling us the individual stories of those 2 people, those 2 people, their story is that season. But the overarching...
So then you disagree with me.
Yeah, but the overarching story of the entire series is slowly telling us about the organization they work for.
I mean, I could get on board with that, but I still think that's lazy.
I would like to see Donald Glover and...
I think it's a lazy way to not explain
I would like
what
to see
happens.
the other actors back. Yes, I would. I think
Unless
that would be
you're just
fun.
like, oh, you're supposed to... It's not lazy. You're supposed to assume they died.
What if season 2 is a whole new Mr. and Mrs. Smith until the very end, and then they show up?
Now, that would be good. And that would dangle us for season 3. So then how would you feel about Fallout if they just straight up went to
a completely different setup?
Again, how would you feel?
It's a completely different...
but you could easily do it if you went by the game. I don't think they're going to.
I don't think they're going to.
You could.
And they.
You could,
to
though.
To me, I could live with that ending of the first season of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. But they left way too much stuff on the table for the end of Fallout to just say, oh, we're going to open a new vault for season 2.
But then you could open a new vault and you could bring everything back together at the very end.
Well, they could do that, yeah. You never know.
Okie dokie. Other announcements. The Rings of Power, also on Amazon, is set to return August 29th. So it seems to me like we're going to have a big June, a little bit of a break in July, and then more stuff in August.
Yep, looks like I got something to hate watch in August.
I still never watched the first season because you told me specifically, don't watch this. This show's going to suck. And then I went on my trips last year, and you watched it.
Yes, and it sucked. And I watched the whole thing. I am a Lord of the Rings fan, and I'm going to watch it just because it's putting things that have been described in the books to film for the first time, and I will say, like, visually it was a very good looking show, but the story was
As
and
a
the characters were.
It's always nice to see
exactly
stuff come like from the pages to the show.
Like,
again, what's the deal with they don't have the rights that they can't just do a Lord of the Rings show?
Well, no,
I feel like they're doing a Harry Potter show eventually.
Do you mean as in they're doing a Lord of the Rings show, as in doing a show based off of basically what we got from Peter Jackson?
Yes.
With the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers. I don't think there's anything stopping them from doing that.
I think that could translate really well to a show.
Because the way I understood the rights to this show to work, the reason that they can't say some of the stuff they can say is they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion, but they do have the rights to the appendix of the Return of the King. I know. Yes, I know. So there are things.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have massive gaps that they can't. Things they specifically can't do because it will cross that copyright line with the Silmarillion. But the appendix to the Return of the King had a big old history in it, basically, that kind of described
it's
things.
about been 20 years since the Return of the King movie came out. That came out fall 2003.
Yeah, it's been over 20 years.
Oh.
21 years.
No, wait a minute. How's it, though? Because...
Yeah, I guess you're right. It would be 21. Well, yeah, it would be 21 years this fall. So, yes, last fall,
wow.
It would be over 21. Let's count here. So, yeah, I don't know. I will watch it. I could catch you up to speed if you wanted to watch it with me. I don't think you need to go put yourself through that and watch the entirety of season 1.
You're really selling it.
I think season 2 is going to be better. They had some writer changes in season 2.
And I think the first season, didn't you say it came out near when House of Dragon came out?
They came out against each other. That was a terrible decision.
See, I didn't realize that. I thought they were.
Well, we weren't.
Well,
we never started watching House of Dragon. We even when we tried House of Dragon those first couple times, we weren't watching it like concurrently with everybody else.
No one has. Speaking of, no one has really given us their play for us to watch it.
All right. So next announcement here: the Frasier reboot season 2 has begun production, and Perry Gilpin, the actress that played Roz, will be a returning and recurring guest star. That means we're going to get her for more than one episode.
Yes. I don't know when it's going to come back. I think it'd be great if they could give that to us before December so we could get another holiday episode. I would like that, but at the glacial pace that everything seems to take these days, I'm not holding my breath on it. I am excited for Roz to be in more than one episode because that was clearly the best episode, was the one that she was in. And I don't know, again, necessarily if it was just because of her. It's like she snapped back into character, just like they have. But I felt like the cast was finally starting to gel.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
The problem with the streaming and these long waits, especially for a comedy, is as soon as it was starting to gel, boom, that was it. That's all she wrote. And it's not going to hit the same. I don't think this show's ever, even if they got David Hyde Pierce to come back, is ever going to be comparable to the original because it has so many things stacked against us. And that alone, the shortened episodes, the length of time in between them. But, of course, I am still going to tune in and see how things go. I really hope that Lilith still makes an appearance.
I think you got to get her in at least once a season, right?
I really think that David Hyde Pierce is pretty much hard no on it, though.
I agree.
And it'd be great if he did show up and they kept that a secret, but I think we know because they do film in front of a live audience.
Yeah, that would come out. That would come out. Yeah. So, all right. Well, listen. Hey, we introduced last podcast a new way for you guys to reach out to us and comment, and we have received several of them. If you're listening to the podcast now and you have no idea what I'm talking about, even though you heard the pre-roll, go down to the episode description, and there's a link right at the very beginning. And if you click it on your phone, it'll take you to your messaging app. You type after the little text that it puts in there, and it sends the message directly to us, and we can respond to them. And we have a few this week, including the first one from our friend from South Carolina, who simply states, in the history of all duds, do you think the latest T Swift is the biggest dud of all? I believe he is referring to the Tortured Poets Department.
No, you are incorrect. The Tortured Poets Department is, again, I will say, Taylor's best collective work. And I know the person that sent this in is totally going to a Taylor concert. So just give me your ticket then if it's such a dud.
Yeah, you know what? Actually do that, because could potentially save me a lot of heartache and money.
Do you think it's a dud, Daniel?
No, I have enjoyed everything that I've heard so far. I won't say that I've sat down and listened to everything, but I have no issues with the
Well, we got a
album.
Record player.
We did get a
So
record
we've
player.
been playing our vinyls, which is very fun. What's your favorite Taylor Swift song ever? Can you think of one? I'm sure you can at least think of one.
I like the one, the Who's Afraid of Little Old Me from this one.
The album that is not a dud. Are you just saying that because that's my favorite song from
No, I like that.
the Tortured Poets
And I
Department?
really enjoy the TikToks that have come from it.
What about other Taylor songs from albums?
Oh, let's not do this.
Oh, come on.
No, let's not do this.
I'm sure you could at least come up with one song. I could think of my favorite song from one of your favorite recording artists or bands, Foo Fighters, Monkey Wrench. Favorite song, me. Go. Name me another Taylor song right now.
What's the one where she's like, all my friends are little babies and I'm a monster on the hill?
Anti-Hero
Okay,
from the
I like that
album
one.
Midnights.
I like that one. Okay.
Nice.
Next comment.
What's your favorite Foo Fighters song?
February Stars.
I don't know if I've heard that one.
It wasn't released. It was just an album. So
It's not a. Is it a deep cut?
It's probably, I would say. I don't want to say that. I don't want to sound like that. But I don't believe it was released as a single. So I don't like. If you had to have bought the album, it was on to hear it.
You know who would be cool? Dave Grohl and Taylor to do a little duo together. Because I remember watching this video where he talked about how he met Taylor and she was like playing one of his songs or something. And he was like, this is a really good song. And he's like, wait a minute. I wrote this song. I think I would love to see a little mashup. I think we can make it work.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it would be good.
All right. So we have another, actually 2 comments from the same person in Ohio who says, there are rules online for True American. That is,
I figured there had to be.
That is in response to our conversation last week where we announced our new rewatch segment, which is going to be New Girl, and we talked about how we would like to play True American. I don't know if we'd survive the game at this point. I wouldn't.
At this point in my life.
At point in our ages, yes. And then the other comment is, you should watch Palm Royale on Apple. This is Hannah, by the way. I like how she had to put out her identity, so it's totally your sister. I think Palm Royale is one of the shows that I suggested to you, and you were like, that doesn't look good. And then I never talked about it again, but now Hannah's throwing it out there. Hannah did suggest Severance.
She did. I guess I should go watch the trailer for Palm Royale and see what I think. I have done near zero research since we heard this comment, so Hannah, I will watch the trailer and tell you why we aren't going to watch it on next episode.
Nice.
All right, and the final comment from all the way from California. It's Doc from the Hoof-Hearted podcast. He says I believe he is referring to me and my old manisms from last week's episode. Yes. When he says, I too am a young old man and have been yelling at people to slow down since I was a kid. Question time, when is the rewatch starting and what show are you watching along with Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Brooklyn Nine-Nine should win, and if it doesn't, I demand a recount. So the answer to your question is, today we are starting the rewatch, and no, it is not Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I am sorry, my friend, you lost the vote in a landslide.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine got second, but New Girl
it was still a landslide.
Won. I would always be willing to go back and watch. I
would too. Like yeah, I would too. Even though it did kind of lose a little bit of when it switched channels.
Yeah, the last season I felt like we had less like group episodes.
Yeah, it did, and I couldn't. It was weird the way they structured
funny.
It, and it was still funny.
What are the place they like to go? The 2 guys, wing sluts.
Wing sluts, yeah.
I do like me some good wings.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of sluts, it's time to talk about Bridgerton, Season 3, Part 1. Now, before we talk about the show itself, in particular you, because I didn't watch a ton of it.
You watched some of it.
I watched some of it. Please just go ahead, stand up on your soapbox, and tell me why splitting seasons into parts is the worst thing that streaming services have ever decided to do.
It's like you can read my mind. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I don't hate it as much as the weekly release.
Okay, I was about to ask you that.
I feel like streaming services are turning into just cable, except for now, instead of buying one package, I'm buying like subscriptions to all the different networks, and it's just insane. So I don't like that at all, because one of the perks when streaming services first came out is that for someone like me who loves to binge watch, I got all my episodes at once. But the splitting of the seasons is driving me crazy. And I see right through you, Netflix. I know why you're doing this, because ever since all the other streaming networks have popped up, a lot of stuff, except for, Suits, which we're watching now, a lot of those old shows have found homes on other networks. So Netflix's main things it seems to be relying on right now, it's reality programs like Love is Blind, and it's original content. When the strike happened, that further delayed stuff. They are finding more and more people jumping ship. They want to make sure you keep your subscription. Hence, streaming of the seasons. Now, thankfully, we only have to wait a month, but that almost is even more of a dagger to my soul, because it's like, well, we know you wouldn't get, which I wouldn't, but other people might that aren't crazy. Like, they were like, oh, we know you wouldn't get rid of Netflix for just like a month, so here it comes. But they did that with like other shows like Ozark, all of that stuff, shows I didn't care about as much, but I still watched. But the shows like what we know they're going to be doing with that 90s show and Emily in Paris later, that are shorter episodes, really infuriate me. The Bridgerton Season 3, we have been waiting over 2 years. I do not count Queen Charlotte. It was a spinoff. While it was very good, it was a spinoff show. I do not count that. This makes me mad. We have been waiting so long. It has been done. We were originally supposed to get it in like December. And then they have the audacity to make it, do it in 2 parts. And it's only an 8-episode season. So I only got 4 episodes. I watched the season twice because I watched it on Friday and then again on Saturday because I needed more. And the way they ended it, while it was like the best scene ever, and it just rewarded me as a book reader so much. They ended it on that note, to the fact that, sorry, I know we are excited for The Boys. Bridgerton is going to take precedence for me in June because I'm going to need
that's fine.
to pick it up.
That's fine with me because you'll just be able to watch it in like an evening and you'll be done.
Boom.
All right, so now take a deep breath. Remember that you've gotten that rage out, and now tell me about that carriage scene.
It was perfect. Everything, right down to the last detail. Okay, so Bridgerton season 3.
You were actively sweating.
I was. No shame in my game. I was basically sweating. I was so excited and happy and just joyous and yes, we're finally getting the carriage scene. Bridgerton works by the books. I am a book reader. Mic drop. And I do think the show has made some improvements to the books because the books are based basically on one Bridgerton sibling and you get little sprinklings of the others. But the show, they have more of an ensemble cast. So season 1, which I would consider the first book the worst book, but season 1 is the show, the one that hooked me in. That was Daphne and Simon's season. Season 2, that was my favorite book. That was Antony's season, The Viscount Who Loved Me. I think that's what the name of that book. Hope can't remember the name of the favorite book from the series. It's because I'm so overwhelmed with the carriage scene. I don't know why they have skipped Benedict's book and not introduced Sophie yet, but that's for my rant that's coming later in this podcast. But they went ahead and they did Romancing Mr. Bridgerton season 4. That's Colin's book and Penelope's book. And that is my very close second favorite book in the series. Very close.
Wait. Very close second?
No, very close second.
Okay.
It's a very close second place. What I mean
so it's close to your first place.
Yes.
Okay.
Very close. Within milliseconds of separation or millipoints of separation. Not even a whole point. It'd be a 0.99 separating them. And I think it made sense from a show perspective to go with that one because they really have introduced us heavily to the Featheringtons and Penelope and her story. And before, because I did watch season 1, I committed one of the crimes of I watched season 1 before I read all of the books.
Can I tell you a secret?
What?
I watched the Fellowship of the Ring before I read The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I already knew that.
Okay.
But yeah. But yeah, I committed one of those crimes and then I went back and I read all the books before the other seasons came out. And I kind of, I knew the show was doing enough, and they've done enough to put those characters on. It does make sense because people are very invested in that. And the show revealed who Lady Whistledown is, which it's Penelope. They reveal that in season 1.
Okay.
So with the book,
that's Gossip Girl, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't find out in the books until Romancing Mr. Bridgerton because that's such a big plot point.
And that's the 4th book.
And that is the
that's a ways
4th
to
book in the series.
Okay. So what I know about what's going to take place probably in part 2 of this season in the books was
a major
major thing to take place for him to find out.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that's going to be kind of the second half conflict between the two characters. So each book also has a trope. So, and I think Diamond, Daphne and Simon, I guess you could call them Diamond, their trope is one of the tropes that doesn't excite me as much. They do the fake dating thing, but they do kind of are very into each other very quickly. The second one, classic enemies to lovers. Duh. Love it. And then the third one is more of the Cinderella story with Benedict. That's why I think they're holding off on that one. I would like to at least meet Sophie, but whatever. Again, I'm going to complain about that here in a little bit. And then the 4th book is that friends to lovers, which is probably my second favorite type of trope.
Also known as She's All That.
Kind of. She's All That. Kind of. Either they weren't friends to lovers and She's All That, Daniel.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
She's All That's the glow up, the makeover, which Penelope does have. And apparently Daniel's like, sees me watching a trailer for this season. He's like, oh, is this the She's All That season? And I guess they had Penelope walk down the stairs. Like, one of the producers said they took the inspiration from She's All That. So in terms of like the glow up makeover-y part, yes, you could do like a little bit of She's All That. And it also has the trope of one of them falls first, like she fell first, he fell harder, which I also really like. So those are the kind of, like, I like my tropes to be exciting. I don't like it like, oh, they meet each other, they're instantly into each other. It doesn't like fill me with butterflies as much. I like to see more of that passion. And I was very excited. And as a book reader, it's nice when we get sprinklings of things. Now, the way which apparently we might be getting another carriage scene, which might be more similar to, that one might take place more similar to the events of the book that led up to it. So the way they got to the carriage scene was a little bit different.
Well, yeah, because I remember at one point during that last episode you watched, you screeched out, I don't even know if I was in the room, they're not going to do the carriage scene. They're going to make us wait until June.
They did it. Yay! So, like, the execution of how we got to the carriage scene was a little bit different than it was in the book. But, oh my gosh, I feel so rewarded as a book reader, because that is one thing I remember when I was like, oh, even before we knew that this season was going to focus on Colin and Penelope, I'm like, I better get my carriage scene. On Reddit, all the book girlies were like, oh my gosh, the carriage scene. When they were teasing the season, the actors were stepped out of a carriage, and I was like, oh my gosh. They know what we're talking about. They know what we want. And they actually did like the lines from the books, and one of the changes that they made was Colin said Penelope's line, like, do you think the carriage could keep going or something? And I thought that was precious. But then he said for God's sakes, Penelope Featherton, are you going to marry me or not at the end? And he pretty much says that in the book, and I was just so excited. But it was hot. It was good. It was, like, passionate. I never thought that I'd be playing a Pitbull song over and over again. But this show, what Bridgerton does is it takes, like, modern songs and it puts them to, like, orchestra music. So this season we had Happier Than Ever by Billie Eilish, Jealous by Nick Jonas. We had that ABCD song from TikTok on there. We had a song from Sia.
Later.
I hate you. Cheap Thrills from Sia. Dynamite. That was some of the songs that we had this season. Previous seasons, we've had like Material Girl, Wrecking Ball. So I really like how the show does that. They take that orchestra music, but they did the Give Me Everything by Pitbull for the carriage scene. And it just the tension with the music, just the confession. So when Colin finally confesses his feelings, it was just so passionate. He basically tells her, he's like, and when I sleep, all I think about is you. In fact, I prefer sleep because that's like where I know I'll find you or something. And I'm like, oh! So it was so good. What's the Homelander thing? It was perfect.
Yeah. Right
down to the very last detail. And yes, it was a very sexy scene.
Yeah, you got done watching it, and you were like, I am sweating. And I came out here, and like, did you ask me to touch the back of your back?
No, seriously. I was like, feel my back. I'm sweaty.
Actual, like, I've been working out sweat on your back.
But it was
when you got done watching that episode.
Don't be dirty, Daniel.
I'm
that
not being
was more
dirty.
From just the tension, and I was just so excited to see a scene play out like that I've been waiting for in the books. And then when Colin actually said the line from the book, like, are you, for God's sakes, like, Penelope Featherton, are you going to marry me or not? I was like, oh, we got rewarded. Like, I feel like as a book reader, we take these little sprinklings, and
Sure.
it was so good. I still think I liked Antony's "You Are the Bane of My Existence" and "The Object of All My Desires" speech better, because that just fits my, like, wheelhouse. But it was, I don't know, there's something about the Bridgerton glow up. Now, I will say, a lot of people didn't find Anthony Bridgerton hot until the second season. I always preferred him over Simon, maybe because he's a walking red flag, I don't know. And I just loved him so much immediately, even with the big sideburns. But I was skeptical, even though I loved Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. I'm like, okay, how are they going to make the actor that plays Colin hot? Like, I've just not seen it. Like, he has such a little boy face. Let's just say, well done. Well done. I don't know what they put in the waters there, but the Bridgerton glow up is real. Shonda Rhimes has just done well with these people.
Let me ask you a question then. Is it a situation of they're glowing them up for their season, or are they doting them down for the seasons that's not theirs?
I think part of it is that they do, when you know you have the new male lead, they are glowing them up on purpose. But I also think Colin, the actor, is older now than when they filmed season 1, which was several years ago at this point. But it's like he worked out, he got a tan. I don't know what was going on, but maybe it's just because I was so into the storyline, like suddenly into it. Consider me a fan. And there's this part of the scene in the carriage scene, which they kind of do like they reference this in the books, where she like touches his hair, and it's just like the face he made when she reaches up after they kiss, the carriage scene. And she, like, touches his hair, and he just makes this face and then smiles. Oh, that is a man in love. And it was so good. So how many times have I rewatched the carriage scene, would you say?
I know of
more.
4. Yeah. I mean,
way more than that. At least
the
20.
carriage scenes particularly, I know you've gone ham
I've,
on.
studied it.
You rewatched the entire season twice, right?
Yes.
Since it came out on
that is correct.
Friday.
Yes.
We were recording on a Monday.
And when you only give me 4 episodes, I was just so happy about it. Like, and I believe the conflict is going to be, which is very similar to the conflict in the book, because actually the carriage scene in the book happens after he finds out she's Lady Whistledown.
Okay.
I think they're going to do that a little differently this time, but I've been told we're going to get the iconic mirror scene, which I'm very excited about, because that's another sweet, beautiful, emotionally charged, let's just say, scene betwixt the two characters that I'm very excited for. And I think we might get another carriage scene. They kind of indicated at that, so I don't know if they're going to do that as part of the reveal. The reveal, and I think some people that are not book readers are still a little mad at Penelope, because last season Eloise finds out. Now, Eloise does not find out about Lady Whistledown until the big reveal in the books. Like, Colin is the first, person to find out that Pin is, and they kind of did it a different way with their friendship. But I'm here to tell y'all that boy that Eloise liked, that commoner, he does not even exist in the books. I'm just waiting for Sir Philip to show up again, because that's Eloise's story. So I think we're more forgiving of Penelope because we know more about her character from the books, and we also know just some more details, because I've seen some people that are still a little irritated about that, whereas Eloise was kind of getting on my nerves this season, and she's traditionally been my favorite character. I would really like for the back half of season 2 to have Philip come back in. We have met him briefly in the seasons, but we know that's her story. I don't know I think for season 2, obviously this is going to continue. They've introduced us to Francesca's story. That is book 6. So it'll be very interesting. Other things about the season. Let's talk about what I didn't like.
Okay. I'm in. I'm back in.
You're back in. The Mondrake storyline, that, those people don't exist in the book. I don't know. I felt like they were the Matt Donovan of this season. My Vampire Diaries people, we all know about Matt Donovan. The only human, one of the only characters to survive all the seasons, and they spent so much finale time on Matt Donovan. It's just it's a whole joke, and I felt like they were the Matt Donovans. Now, I do think they've had some kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Inheritance, there we go. But it's going to their kids instead. I was a little unclear on that because I really didn't care. I was like, let's get to the actual scenes that matter. And I just feel like we spent a lot of screen time on them. So I think something with the whole Featherington, they need to produce an heir plot. And that's Penelope's sisters. I think that's going to come up later. I felt like we spent entirely too much screen time on them. So that was one of my main complaints. And then my other complaint is poor Benedict, another rando lady. He seems to be hooking up with some older woman that's a widow. And it's where's Sophie? Where is she? I want to meet her. So I'm hoping maybe the last episode of season 3, they'll have the masquerade ball, and that's where he first meets Sophie. I'm hoping that maybe we can do that, because I feel bad. Where is Sophie? While his story might be that cookie cutter Cinderella vibe that we've seen time and time again on shows, Sophie is one of my absolute favorite love interests for all the Bridgerton people. We do know that the Shonda Rhimes, and when they created it, that the one thing that the author, Julia Quinn, wanted was she's like, you can do what you want as long as all the Bridgerton siblings have their original end games intact and have their happy stories. You can figure out another way to get there. So I would like to meet Sophie at some point. So those were the things that I disliked. I would have liked more screen time for Colin and Penelope, but I do feel like we've gotten more screen time for them and their building of their relationship in their other seasons that I was personally okay with it. And I feel like we're going to get definitely more of them together in the back half. I would have liked to seen Colin grovel a little bit more because it starts off where Penelope's a little mad at him from some comments that he had made. I would have enjoyed seeing that more. Things I did like. I actually like Lord Debling. Like, I obviously knew that that's not who Penelope's going to end up with, but I thought he seemed like a very nice man. I would like to see him again. I think he's probably going to die, though, because he's, like, going off on, like, some village to, like, the
Is he not from the books?
Voyage. Yeah, he's not in the books. But he's supposedly going on some voyage
He's like
to
the tree,
Antarctica.
the animal guy, right? That's, like, into all the, like, nature stuff.
Yeah. And I thought that was very interesting because Sir Philip is, like, a big nature guy, but he doesn't do, like, the voyages, so I don't know, like, what's up with that. Cressida is awful in the books, and they actually gave Cressida a little bit of some redemption sprinkling in. Like, she was still kind of bullying Penelope at the beginning, but she and Eloise have struck a friendship, and I think Cressida really does value Eloise's friendship. I liked that they gave her a little bit of redemption. I think that's going to be backtracked with, because obviously she's going to try to take credit as that she is Lady Whistledown in the second season, because the Queen is offering a reward for Lady Whistledown to come forward. And that does happen in the books. Cressida does try to take credit for that. So I'm not really sure, what we're going to do there. But I did like seeing her character be humanized a little bit instead of just a straight up mean girl. I think, I don't know. I thought I was going to hate her and Eloise being friends, but I didn't hate it ultimately. I also liked that Lady Danbury's brother was introduced, and that I think he and Violet are going to hook up. That'll be fun. Violet is the matriarch of the Bridgerton family. I liked that we got some more Kate and Anthony scenes. See, what's the big fat bummer is the guy that played Simon from season 1, I think his name's like Reggie John Page or something, just said he didn't want to do any more Bridgerton because he wanted to go off to be a movie star. I have yet to see him in anything. So we got to see Daphne a little bit last season, but she's not in it at all this season. And I like that the actors who played Kate and Anthony are like totally willing to have some more scenes. You saw one of their scenes.
Yeah, I did.
Still on their honeymoon.
One of the running gags I always say about this show is when I'm in the room seeing it, somebody's doing it.
Oh,
somebody's doing it when I'm in the room. The
first season that I watched a Bridgerton, like, you happened to be there for the honeymoon episode, and every time Daniel would come upstairs, he'd be like, "What are you watching?" And then he was like, "What are you watching?" Every single time.
All right, well, yeah, I didn't watch a ton of this. Now, I did watch maybe the first half of the first episode,
yes.
and I
was like, "This is what we're watching."
As I have aged in time, I have just come to the realization that it is rude and inconsiderate to put down people for the things that they like to watch, because certainly if who am I to throw a stone in the glass house that I live in of the stuff that I can get into watching sometimes.
I like it. It's fun.
But I do have to say, for me personally, this is just not something I can get into. You have shows that you watch that I can get into, and you have shows you watch that I can't. And I cannot get into Bridgerton.
This is very much a Regency-style Gossip Girl, if you will.
Yeah.
Romance, but there's humor. I feel like this is, not to be sexist, but I think you wouldn't be wrong. And, like, a lot of men are probably going to be sitting down and watching Bridgerton. That being said, and I try to be the same way as you, there is somebody that I have seen on social media, I'm not going to call them out, and they're the type of person that they are all about the Twilight books and the Twilight movies, but then they will crap on Bridgerton. I'm like, excuse me. You cannot do that if you are such a Twilight fan. Sorry.
I just think you should like what you like, but you don't. That doesn't take away somebody liking something else,
yes,
and somebody liking that other thing and not liking your thing doesn't take away from your thing.
Absolutely. People should like what they like and enjoy what they enjoy. The only reason you watched part of it with me was I told you I had a very, very busy week, and I said, listen, I was like, because the episodes dropped Thursday. I held off.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is my plans on Friday. I'm going to eat our homemade pizza that you made, which was very good. And I'm like, I'm watching Bridgerton while I watch dinner. You can join me or you can go downstairs. I'm only getting 4 episodes. These are my plans. You can be part of the party or not. But this is what I want to do. I've been looking forward for this for over 2 years, and you respected that, and I appreciate it.
Time did you go to bed Friday night? It was like 3 a.m., wasn't it?
Yeah, because after I finished the season, then I had to get on Reddit, and I had to discuss it. Then I had to watch TikToks. Then I had to watch the carriage scene about 10 more times again before I went to sleep. I do, as a book reader, though, again, I want to stress that when they give us, like, the lines from that book, like the way that Colin got to deliver that line at the end, that was kind of our sizzler. I really appreciated that. But I also really like the differences that the show has done. Now, for Francesca, that is another character. Her book is probably my 3rd favorite book in the series. I really like it. And I think if you are a non-book reader, cover your ears. We kind of start off her book on more of a melancholy note. Like, her husband dies. And we don't get to know him that much. We don't get to know John very much, but we do get to know Michael, his cousin, who she later, that turns out to be her person.
His cousin, not her cousin.
His cousin.
Okay, I'm just making sure I heard you right.
Michael Sterling, John's cousin. And prepare to be hurt, because I too am like, oh my gosh, I really like John, even though I know I love Michael from the books. And I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt even more because of how it happens. Like, she is a widow. Like, she does go through a period of mourning, and the fact that now they're actually introducing us to John first is like, oh gosh, because knowing what's going to happen down the road. But I really, they did a recast for the actress who played Francesca, because the original actress had other commitments, and I think the recast is fine. I think it fits very, like, Francesca in the books is actually the only one, I believe, to become, like, the diamond of the season. Even though I think Daphne gets it in the show, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think she got it in the book. But Francesca is very introverted, and I felt like this show played that very well. So I was really enjoying those interactions. All I have to say is that Michael in the books is described to be, like, the hottest of all. I pictured Theo James when I read the books.
Even though the diamond of the season was originally picked by Gossip Girl and not the Queen.
I don't know if that was how it was picked. I can't recall.
That's what they said in the show. The 15 or 20 minutes I watched, they made that very comment.
Oh, you're talking about the show.
Yeah, I'm talking about the show,
not the books.
Yeah, I haven't read the books. Are you kidding me?
The Queen did pick. She did pick Francesca as her diamond this season.
But the first time a diamond was picked, they said in the show very specifically that the Gossip Girl picked it first.
Lady Whistledown.
Yeah.
What are you asking me? I don't know what you're asking.
I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to be part of the conversation.
Just trying to be part of the conversation. I was just saying about Francesca and her story, and that I am excited for the little sprinklings we've got in there. I really, really, really want either Philip or Sophie to make an appearance for either Eloise or Benedict going forward. I'm really shocked that they continue to make just no references to Sophie, because she's so beloved in the fandom, in the book fandom. And Benedict, I feel like everybody seems to really like his character on the show. I think his character on the show is actually more likable than it is in the books. They gave him some of Colin's personality from the books into the show, because Colin's more comical. They made him a little bit more serious in the show, and I felt like we kind of got more of book Colin this season as well, which it was really good. And I want to just go watch the carriage scene again right now.
I'm sure you will, but I do need you to pack it up at least until June, because you're not getting any more. That's all you got. So you just take that little drip of that carriage scene and just keep on watching it.
Well, what are your thoughts on the split season, since you asked me? That's how we can close it. That's how you can be part of the conversation.
I'm going to be honest with you. I have yet to experience a split season for a show that I care about whatsoever. Because they did that for The Witcher season 3. We watched half. We watched half of the first episode of The Witcher season 3, and we never returned to it. And I haven't had a show do that since. Because all the shows that I'm really interested in have just been mostly like episodic, weekly release. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Because you didn't love Ozark, we were just into it, but it wasn't.
Especially by the end. I guess it's difficult. I don't know. Do you think it has an effect on the production of the show, or do you think they let them make their shows and then they just split it somewhere? Like, did Netflix know that the end of it?
That's one of the biggest complaints people are having is everyone's like, this season feels rushed, and it felt different. I think they absolutely intended that to be like our cliff. I mean, it does.
They
make
told
a good
them, "Hey, make a
cliffhanger.
cliffhanger at the end of episode 4."
No, I don't think they did.
Okay.
I think it fit that they chose to cut it there, but I think that they filmed this absolutely thinking we were going to get all 8 episodes, because I have seen some complaints. Like, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, we barely got any of Colin and Penelope. It was supposed to be their season, and then they just cut it right there. Like, what the heck?" I think they absolutely, and I feel like if they, like, I look back on the previous season 2, where they could have cut that, and I think people would have really been mad then. I think it was absolutely designed to go longer. Now, I don't know about Emily in Paris, which we're getting, but I think for sure they designed this to be meant to be watched.
All right. Well, then I'm going to say this is my statement on your question. I'm going to say the following: give it to me all at once, or do it at a weekly release. Don't do this. This seems like the worst of both worlds.
I think in a weekly release, though, I would have been starved for content.
Right. Well, I think there are some shows in this day and
Bridgerton.
age that just don't work in weekly release. Like,
Every
they just
episode
don't
of
work that
Bridgerton,
way.
The first season of Bridgerton, I watched it all on December 26th.
And so Netflix's
The second season,
conundrum,
I watched it in a day. I would have watched all 8 episodes Friday
I know you
night.
would have. Netflix's conundrum is they want to make sure you're there subscribed for at least 2 months, but they know they have a show that is really not particularly good in a weekly release format. So what do you do?
And I don't really think, other than their reality shows, Netflix has done the weekly release.
No, they haven't.
I'm very glad that we are getting The Bear all at once.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the weekly release. I feel like I thought there was another show that they did that we both cared about in 2 parts. Now my brain is just mush.
I can't think of it, but maybe
Obviously
you'll come up with it at some point. All right, so that is that for Bridgerton and that carriage scene. And here we are. We are on to, we have seen the conclusion of season 4 of Suits and have started a little bit of season 5. And I think I speak for everybody when I say that whatever happened in season 4 up to the point doesn't matter until Lewis finds out about Mike.
Yes.
I don't remember anything that happened in season 4. And then Lewis finds out about Mike's secret.
Well, we had Mike working as the investment banker.
Yeah, and then he comes back.
Lewis actually helps get Mike's job back. It's Lewis that hires him back. And then Lewis, we think, is going to get fired, so he resigns because of the whole SEC plot. But like you said, none of that is meaningless.
Right. Well, like, we don't care about it.
until Lewis finds out. And I got to give credit. We've criticized some of the writing on the show. I've got to give credit where credit's due. That scene, it was great.
The way Lewis sussed out that Mike didn't go to Harvard.
Excellent writing.
Was very good.
And when you and I realized it at the basic, I went, and then like you put it together too at the same time before they said it, there was this focus on this key because Mike is going over to Lewis's house. He's helping him clean stuff, bringing him office stuff, and Mike makes a comment about it, and Lewis just kind of brushes it off because Lewis thought, Lewis thought that Mike was kidding.
Yeah, Mike's comment in particular, and this is an important detail, is what's this key about? You ever going to tell me the story about this key?
And Lewis was like, okay, you're joking around with me. Then Mike asks about it again and kind of pushes on it. And that's where Lewis knows. Because that key was if you graduated, what was it, magna cum laude or summa cum laude, you would get that key. And on Mike's, faux transcripts from Harvard, because, again, Mike did not actually go to Harvard. For those of you that are new here, we've already said this. And that just is part of it. Like, Daniel and I have had this conversation about how you can fake it, everything. You can fake the transcripts. You can fake the grades. You can fake the diploma. But there's certain intricacies about a place, like the pizza episode in season 1, where Lewis is like, no, you get the pizza, blah, blah, blah. That's, like, really good.
Right.
Like, the whole professor, how he never gives anybody, like, higher than an A- or something, that they do meet, and we have seen again. I think in the 5th season we've seen him again. But that key, that would be just one of those things that how would you know that unless you went there and did your homework? I don't know why Harvey, who did go there, maybe Harvey did Harvey graduate summa cum laude? I don't know.
I don't know.
And the way they did that whole reveal. So we think Lewis they're trying to get him another job somewhere else, possibly in Boston, to be with Sheila, his ex-fiance. She's like, you know what, Lewis, she said what I felt like I would have been the same way. Like, you're just deciding to move here because you don't have anywhere else to go. Whereas that's not necessarily true, because originally, before the whole resignation thing happened, he was going to have his whole work schedule adjusted. Yes. And then he uses his favor with Jessica to bring back Mike. Well, now she has a big favor. So enter Pearson, Spector, Lit.
Yep.
Because Lewis knows about Mike. And I'm going to say, I feel like of all the reactions, Lewis is the way I would expect. It would have been out of character for Lewis to not react the way
I agree.
he
did. You have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, because for the most part on this show, a lot of these people's first instinct should have been to report him to the bar.
Report it, because all their jobs are on the line.
But you're right. Like, Lewis has the most realistic response. He uses it to try and leverage himself in successfully to get his name on the name of the company. He's mad, and he spends multiple episodes being absolutely angry and taking it out on everybody around him. Yes, very mean.
But it's very much in character, because Lewis, his whole thing, he's so proud to be from Harvard. He takes it very seriously. He's proud to work where he is. The one thing I would say, again, if this wasn't a show, I could have seen Lewis being like, okay, drop your non-compete clause that you're giving me, get me a job with these other firms, and I won't speak of this again. But the other part of Lewis, he's always wanted respect. He's wanted his name on the door. So, of course, it works better with the show to use that as leverage. And Lewis's rage makes so much sense to me. Like, Lewis goes for the jugular.
Yeah.
Like, he is mean to everyone. And that's because Lewis feels like not only was this secret kept from him, he feels like everybody was in on it. It feeds right into his insecurities that no one trusts Lewis, no one respects Lewis. And Lewis constantly, he's like, basically what he says to Johnny is like, so you guys have just been making fun of me the whole time about this, laughing about being behind my back, knowing this huge secret. And Lewis is ticked. And he's perhaps the most mean to Rachel, which is like, I felt like he has always had this like kind of big brother, little sister thing with Rachel, and he's always been protective of her. And he is hitting people where it hurts. Their insecurities, Rachel's biggest insecurity, that she's not good enough. She wasn't good enough to get into Harvard. He's coming at her for that. He's like, I feel like he's coming at Donna. Like, he and Harvey have always had this banter back and forth on this seesaw, and they still have it. But Lewis is mad. But it can be really difficult as a human being to keep up just so much anger and rage. And I'm glad the episode they had where they finally kind of had Lewis come back around. He gets back with Donna first, because he's like, okay, well, I want you to tell me a secret that, only like that no one else would know. Have you what did he ask about? Like, have you ever hooked up with Harvey?
Yeah.
And she says once, which was revealed. And that's sort of how he gets Donna back in. And then Donna basically tells him, like, you know what, Lewis, you're going to have to join the team or not. And he has conversations with Jessica. He lies for Jessica again.
Mm-hmm.
They call him Jeff on the show. What do we call him?
Amenadale. Jeff.
We're not calling him Jeff, an easy name. We're going to refer to him as Amenadale from Lucifer. Thank you very much. We're going to use a more difficult name.
It took me so long to even understand when they said Jeff who they were referring to.
Yeah, because we're like, Amenadale? So we just think maybe we're the only people that probably think that's funny.
Yeah, probably.
It's just part of our humor.
Oh, well.
I'm glad, though, that they brought Lewis back in, and we know, and one of the ways they reined Lewis in, too, before he was nice to everybody, was like, listen, people find out about Mike, you're on the line too.
Yeah, he is. Because
ultimately all their careers are on the line.
Because he used it as leverage instead of turning it in. Now he's on the line too. And so that's how Jessica was able to kind of contractually rein him in a little bit, was to basically be like, listen, if you go out and start blurbing, we all go down. So now you have to keep the secret too.
And that's why she originally wanted to keep the secret from Amenadale/Jeff.
Correct.
And had Lewis say that the reason how he became partner was because he blackmailed her for the stuff that Daniel Hardman did, which was 2 seasons ago. And then that all ultimately blows up in Jessica's face later, because Amenadale finds out.
Yeah, he gets Lewis drunk, drunk Lewis can't keep his trap shut
And I was
about
really
things.
wanting those two to be friends. But that guy's
Yeah.
probably... Do you think he's going to show up again
I
in
don't think
season
he ever
5?
shows up. No, I think he's gone.
I don't
I
think
think that
so
was a
either,
season 1
which is
thing.
unfortunate. What did you think about Lewis's just anger? I think it's right in character.
It was right in character. It was realistic.
If anyone, he's the one that reacted the most realistic.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly, Rachel didn't react realistically the way I
She
would
was
have
mad, but yes, we know you're at the indecent scene.
Do we want to talk very briefly about the sudden influx of even more Lucifer actors?
Yes.
Like, Amenadiel exits and immediately...
Enter the OG Cylon, Trisha Heffler from Battlestar Galactica. She's playing another lawyer. What is her name? Like Evan something.
Yeah,
so her first
Evan.
name's like Evan. And she's like, she was Lucifer's mother. And
Yeah.
Lucifer and Amenadiel's mother and God's wife.
You-
Go watch Lucifer if this sounds wacky to you. And I recognized her before you did.
Yeah, you did. As soon as she spoke,
went,
you didn't even
"There's
see
my girl."
her. You didn't even see her.
I
As
heard
soon
her
as she
voice.
spoke, you were like, you knew who it was.
Absolutely. She's a very attractive woman.
I'm not gonna argue with you on that one.
And I was like, no, yeah, I feel like Suits, as we've talked, is the show where every actor shows
Yeah.
up from everything. But now we've had 3 people from Lucifer. And then what's also interesting is all the Game of Thrones people that have shown up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then now they
And
make
they
Game
make
of
a
Thrones references.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and then so now the drama. I do have 2 notes from the episodes that I take that you like tell me. Hey, write that down.
Oh, so
You're
I
like,
don't
write that
forget.
down. Franklin and Bash.
Yeah, they made in season 4 a Franklin and Bash joke. They're like, "Who do you guys think you are, Franklin and Bash?" And that's because before we first started watching Suits, you were confused and thinking that's what I was trying to get you to watch.
And then the other one, and this was from last night, Coates. We finally found winter in New York.
Yes, Suits has been taking the Sex in the City route of perpetual summer, spring, and I'm like, it seems like it's never cold there, but they finally were wearing coats. So apparently I had enough to write that. And I'm surprised I didn't have you write down the guy part of the SEC plot, who I feel like plays a villain in everything I've ever seen him in.
Yeah, he's kind of a not villain necessarily.
Yeah, no, but now he's not.
Yeah. Then and I know you don't want to talk about this very much because you're ready for this storyline to just end and be over. But we did kind of end season 4 and start season 5 with Donna has left Harvey as his secretary and gone to Lewis, and the drama that's unfolding there. And I agree with you, to be honest. It's not necessarily from my perspective. It's not necessarily me just really wanting Donna and Harvey to get together.
I do.
But it's more of I don't like the storyline. It's annoying, and
It's making me dislike Harvey.
yeah, it's really making Harvey dislike. Yeah,
I think what happens at the end of season 4, Donna did some shady stuff she shouldn't have. They had to get her out of it, and then she and Harvey have just a moment. And obviously we know they have a past, they've hooked up, but they've always remained very close, so close. One of Donna's biggest character flaws is that I feel like her loyalty to Harvey is almost to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a moment, just some stuff comes out where admissions, and Donna basically admitted her feelings on the table. Harvey pretty much said that he loved her, but shut it down again. And I think Donna for herself is like, I can't work like this with you anymore. I can't be your secretary because my emotions are compromised at this point. So she is going to work with Lewis, which I think is going to be a fun dynamic. And Harvey has another secretary. And what were you saying while we were running? You were like, this could be the storyline where Harvey sees that, another secretary can do the same stuff Donna does.
Well, they pointed that,
but isn't going to replace Donna.
Yeah, they made a very specific. I think as a writer, it was very specific that they pointed out the competency of his new secretary by her saying, yeah, any good secretary would do what I just did. And I think the look on Harvey's face is he's starting to come to this realization that it wasn't about Donna being this amazing secretary. It was that it's this person in his life that he can't live without. Yeah. It's his person, not his secretary.
I think, though,
he's starting to the disconnect for him is he's starting to realize that secretary Donna and person Donna, he had them like conflated into one person.
To a point where he shut down any emotional connection
Correct.
at all, even though
and they're two different people.
connection.
And so I think that's the wedge they're going to use to get him to realize. I'm making very crude hand motions right now. That's the wedge they're going to use to start to pull that apart for that relationship. I don't know how long it's going to take them to get there, but I think they will get there.
I think they're going to have some stumbling, little sprinklings of spoilers that I do know. I think we might be in for a long roller coastery wait with those two. So I think they might, like, not to get into the next show we're going to talk about later, but I think they might Nick and Jessica it temporarily and put a little bow on it and have them be cordial again. I don't know if she'll be his secretary again or not. Oh, and we never got to meet Norma, Lewis's secretary.
We never did.
Passes away.
R.I.P. Norma.
And that's one of the reasons why Donna becomes Lewis's secretary. And of course, we have Lewis and Harvey arguing again. Those two are just quite the seesaw. I think it's just their thing, but I'm getting tired of it because when they have moments together of friendship, I cherish it. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. Those are the best parts of the show, and they're few and far between.
And Mike, we actually both found ourselves defending Mike at one point, which
made me sick.
Yeah, because that was where Donna was not working for Harvey, and Harvey was having Rachel do some of his work, and Mike said, like, hey, don't let him, make you do the secretary work. And we were both like, oh my gosh, we both agree with Mike. Oh, and Mike and Rachel are engaged.
They are.
But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I was like, they're just throwing this in to give them some drama. They seem to be good now. The Lewis finding out was what we'd all been waiting for. I think that we still have, in terms of who's going to find it, they're always going to have this secret of Mike.
Sure, absolutely.
I think Rachel's dad could still, who seems to be chill with him getting married.
Yeah, I think that one could be the big one they're gearing up for next.
How do you feel about the prenup? I think if I was a super wealthy person, that'd be the first thing I'd do. And I think that's
I understand
but every time the shows always complain about it.
I understand why you would want one, and I also understand why you would be offended by it.
Yeah, I get it.
I get it on both sides.
I get it on both sides.
I've never been
sorry, I'm not rich
wealthy
enough to give you a prenup.
to have to even consider it. So
Yeah.
I guess that's yay.
I just feel like shows always do that. But like her dad right now seems like he's kind of chill with Mike, but I think that could be our next. I think like it hasn't been the classic trope of you're not good enough for my daughter thing.
Yeah.
Like so many shows do. But if her dad catches wind that Mike's a fraud, I mean, do you want to talk about the flashbacks that you hate so much?
I hate them. They're awful. They do a terrible job, and they always pigeonhole Mike in some way that is completely unnecessary. And they bring Trevor back just because, and it has nothing to the plot or the story.
Other than to emphasize that Mike's been lying forever?
Other than, to make him a liar for longer. So, I don't know. I don't know what else I want to say about that.
I want to reference Fallout. The Fallout medical thing with the syringe. I have to give myself a metaphorical syringe before I watch every episode of Suits because ultimately I know in real life like the Mike thing would bring everybody down and like that's the whole like bit of the show, like he's a fraud, this is what he's doing. So I have to just give myself the syringe and then move forward and watch the show. What about you?
Yeah, same. All right, well, all of that out of the way, it is time for a rewatch. And for the first time in a long time, we're rewatching a new show. You guys voted, and we watched, and so now here we are. We're talking about New Girl, and in particular on this episode, we were talking about New Girl Season 1, Episode 1, The Pilot.
It aired September 20th, 2011. The episode description, according to IMDb, is after breaking up with her two-timing boyfriend, school teacher Jess Day moves in with 3 single males, a bartender, a womanizer, and a personal trainer.
When they first started the episode, before they revealed who she was talking to, I almost thought for a minute, I was like, did I forget that they started this show as like a confessional style, like The Office or like Parks and Rec? And then as the episode went on, I realized that was her interview with the guys. I almost wonder if they were like tricking people into thinking that was the kind of show it was going to be.
I don't know. I remembered immediately that she talked to the guys. I loved how they pull out the douchebag jar.
Yeah, I forgot how many things that are like through points throughout the entire series are dropped in season 1.
Yes, and the douchebag jar is a big thing. I love Schmidt and Cece, and I forgot that we see Cece in episode 1. And that all the guys are staring at her.
I mean, all the guys are staring at her. Schmidt takes his shirt off.
Yeah, and which makes the whole, like, when he does the douchebag jar thing, when they get engaged, like, even more special. Those two are going to go on a seesaw of a romance, though. So our favorite character is Winnie the Bish.
That's correct.
And we don't even see him.
Yes.
in the pilot because it's Coach,
Yep.
who Coach comes back later. And I remember after watching that pilot when it originally aired, being annoyed that Coach was gone. But then I was like, I fell more and more in love with Winston as his character was developed, and what I personally think they just let the actor say, do what you want to do as season 1 progressed.
Right.
And he kind of molded, and I think they've confirmed that he sort of like molded that character, that I didn't really miss Coach anymore. But I know that is it season 3 when we get Coach back?
Season 3 or 4, he comes back, and he's there for a couple seasons, and then he kind of reoccurs back in throughout the rest of the series.
I think it's season 3 because he comes back when Nick and Jess start dating.
Yeah.
And I could see now, because he was always weird about it when he came back. After watching the pilot, I can see how that would have been weird.
Yes.
One of the things that you noted was Nick wore the same sweatshirt
Through most of the episode, until they changed clothes to go
so we put a flannel on.
Until they changed clothes to go to the party, he wore the same, basically like zip-up hoodie sweatshirt the entire episode, which was at least a couple days.
I love Nick Miller.
Which seemed like something, like, what did you say? Something I would do.
It really does. I do have a type. I don't know. I thought that, like, it's because I already know these characters.
Right.
So I love the finale. I love the end when they do the Dirty Dancing song, and you think that Schmidt's like, oh, I don't want to do it, but he's the one that obviously knows the music most. He really is just a little former fat kid, isn't he?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Any, like, thing that, I didn't realize we met Caroline, Nick's ex, in episode 1.
Yeah.
Nick had just been broken up with.
There was
and we meet Schmidt's like enemy, like that guy he hates.
like that's just, and he only pops in like a couple times a year, and it's like all that stuff was packed inside this. We met Schmidt's boss and saw his entire like that whole thing. It's just like all that stuff was in there, season 1, episode 1, and it's like wow, they just kind of just took that stuff and carried with it. And I wonder how much of that is just like they kind of had a plan for the season, and then after they filmed the pilot, the actor that played Coach had to dip out to go to another show, so they had to rewrite, and they're like, okay, well, what do we got to work with? Well, here's all this stuff we set up in the pilot. Let's go for that.
I liked Coach like yelling, like, stop it.
Yeah, when she was crying.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that is their only way they know how to react to women crying.
Why do you men get so uncomfortable when we cry? You don't like it when I cry.
We don't like it when you cry, but we don't know how to make it stop. And the only thing we want is for it to stop.
Especially like when I'm like just really upset about something, like you like cannot stand it when I cry. But at least you're nice.
Well,
to
hold
me
on a
about
second.
it.
You're making me come off a little bad here. If you're crying about like people dying and stuff, I'm like sympathetic about that.
But I mean, know it makes you sad.
You
and
dropped your bowl of chips in the kitchen and you start crying about it. That's the kind of stuff that like I can't understand.
I'm not saying it makes you uncomfortable. Like I think sometimes it makes you uncomfortable when I cry, but that's because you don't like to see me sad and upset.
True. Yes.
I don't know. I just think it's always funny, the reactions to how, like, guys are when women cry. One of the things that I really think about New Girl is that the characters on the show are a little bit older than we are. But every time I watch that's just such a period of your lives, like that kind of like late, mid-20s. And I think that show really captured what it's like to have friendships and go through some life steps and changes. And I'm very excited to continue the rewatch. I forgot how funny Jess was. Because we always give credit to how funny the guys are. I thought Zoe was hilarious.
Yeah, she's very funny, and it's interesting too. Like some shows, the characters like you can tell they haven't nailed that character down until
she's pretty consistent
late in the season. I think Schmidt, Nick, and Jess.
Yeah,
those characters are those characters right in season 1.
I think when Coach comes back, he's very consistent.
Yes.
The only one that really changes is the Winston character. Like he starts off kind of a slow burn, and then I really feel like I'm pretty sure it's in season 1 because Schmidt and Cece do hook up in season 1. It's where he's trapped in the car with them, and he's singing the Wicked soundtrack. Like that is where I remember being like, oh my gosh. And then like all the Ferguson stuff comes into play. I think it's interesting. The first time you and I did this rewatch, we couldn't remember if Ferguson was even real or not.
Yeah, because the cat wasn't on. The cat's not in every show. Like he's only in there every now and then, and he kept referring to it. And I guess we had forgotten how he got Ferguson.
Totally
well, because we were watching it live, so it wasn't like we had just watched that episode, a couple weeks prior. We'd watched that years prior,
and they would have
and
like
then he
weird
never showed up.
Long breaks between New Girl.
So that was interesting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it. I think it'll be fun. So yeah.
That about does it.
I think that's what we got. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of We Watch TV, a podcast about the TV shows we watch. You can find more from Hope and Daniel on Instagram at We Watch TV Podcast. Drop us a line if you like the show, have a question, or a recommendation. You can find Hope on Twitter at Lil Runner and Daniel on Twitter at The Real Hobo Dan. Music for today's podcast was provided by Your Tunes from Pixabay. Artwork was created using the AI program Midjourney with prompts written by Daniel.